Well, 10 Cloverfield Lane. It's fucking good. Go see it. I realise that's a bit of a cold, blunt opening, but this is a movie that without a doubt should be witnessed for the first time with as little prior knowledge as possible. If you haven't seen this movie and you just want to know if I think it's worth your money, then the answer is yes. Undoubtedly yes. Like any movie, it's not without its flaws, but it is a tightly crafted, intensely exciting and exquisitely performed piece of entertainment that will have you at the edge of your seat. And anything else I have to say on the matter will only impede your enjoyment. So turn off the video and go see it now, because I'll be jumping immediately into spoiler territory after the boy band countdown in 3, 2, 1. So if you're still here, you'll be well aware that 10 Cloverfield Lane has almost fuck all to do with the first Cloverfield movie, which a lot of people were pretty worried was going to be the case, and I imagine got upset about when they saw the movie. I mean, yeah, they are technically connected through tiny little references here and there, but speaking of their core narratives, the two don't remotely follow on. Personally, I think this is a good choice. I mean, really, if we look at the first film, what more was there to explore? The same monster attack from a different camera angle? I mean, that would be repetitive. I suppose we could have had the military fight the monster off, but the last time we had a military-focused giant monster movie, I found it more underwhelming than my dad's presence in my childhood. If they really wanted, I suppose, they could have looked at the monster's origins, but that's a bit unromantic, isn't it? I know a lot of people wanted this, but for me it would have just ruined the mystery and intrigue of the first film. I don't know about you, but I find some things are more exciting with a bit of enigma to them. That tall, dark and handsome fellow who passes your street every day suddenly becomes less appealing when you find out he's just some surprisingly attractive but ultimately unremarkable bloke called Barry who just got sacked from his job at the Chippy the other day for scratching his balls before handling a kebab. So yeah, I think being unrelated to the first movie is actually a help and not a hindrance to the quality of this film. Some people will cry false advertising and say it's just a shameful way to attach a recognisable name to the film in order to make more money, and that's probably a little bit true, but it's not as if the films are that drastically different. I mean, Cloverfield was a film with a giant monster that went, "Yeah, I'm gonna kill yous all," in a narrative that was really about people surviving and their relationships. Whereas 10 Cloverfield Lane is about a bunch of aliens that can, "Yeah, I'm gonna kill yous all," in a narrative that's really about people surviving in their relationships. And anthology series do work. I mean, you got the Blood and Cornetto movies, the Vengeance trilogy, and the Twilight Zone, and those are all fantastic. But enough about its connection to other films, and let's now talk about it the way it should be studied, and that's as a standalone piece. What we got here is a movie that works on almost all levels. Almost. The good here is apparent right from the initial setup. The scenario of having our protagonist wake up in a claustrophobic fallout bunker and put the audience in a setup where they can't be sure if the world has or hasn't ended is instantly compelling and allows for a plot that can keep making you second guess yourself. The characters are brilliant. Michelle and Emmett are both likeable enough that you automatically root for them. Michelle is also rather pleasantly not the helpless kidnappee trope she could have so easily been. In horror movies, which this fairly often could be considered to fall into, it is always so annoying when someone's incompetency or idiocy leads to their death. Michelle feels like a counterpunch to the unlikable hopeless victim archetype. She's resourceful and smart, but never to the point where it feels like she's too good and there's no danger or stakes. I mean, she can carve herself a nice little shiv at the end of her crutch, but that didn't stop her shiting bricks when Howard was screaming at her against the wall. Speaking of Howard, holy shit, you're a scary bastard, John Goodman. Fred Flintstone got the eyes of a devil. The way John portrays Howard is so uncomfortably different and yet somehow tangibly real. His unpredictable flip-flop between moods is nigh on Oscar-worthy. In the hands of a lesser nuanced actor, his bipolar temper and unusual mannerisms might have came off silly, but Goodman plays off the whole thing with such grounded reality it was downright chilling. He's like this horrifying exaggeration of self-entitlement. He sort of reminded me of those people you see on the internet with nice guy syndrome. You know the ones. They're all like, "Hey, I'm a nice guy. I've been so nice to you. You should be real grateful." Howard's like the next evolution of this because his distorted logic of entitlement works the exact same way. Michelle should be grateful I saved her. I'm a nice guy. She should want to be my weird replacement daughter. It's unsettling. Howard's the perfect antagonist to match the equally unpleasant setting. The claustrophobic bunker is almost a character in itself, and it's depicted brilliantly by debut director Daniel Trachtenberg and his crew. It's easy to see why Daniel got the job off the back of his Portal fan film. The dude clearly has a talent for visual storytelling featuring women in unfamiliar and troubling environments. Dude's got serious chops. I mean, look at this shot. It basically tells you everything you need to know about the story in one frame. See how Michelle's side of the frame looks like prison, whereas Howard's looks like a comfortable little girl's room? Notice how Howard is placed higher in the frame because he holds the power in this scenario? This is clever filmmaking, and the movie's dripping with stuff like this. This kind of attention to detail. Events are telegraphed through foreshadowing, environments are used to tell stories, and pieces of mystery and tension are often established through movement and action rather than dialogue a lot of the time. The only place the movie falls apart for me is the ending. I'm not opposed to the alien invasion. In fact, I think it could be a rather good idea. This twist felt like a punchline, a nice climactic knockout blow similar to the kind of thing the Twilight Zone would often do. It just went on far too bloody long. Literally, all the ending needed was for Michelle to be looking over the fields into a huge wide-angled shot of spaceships in the distance, and a cut straight to credits, leaving the audience salivating at the intrigue of the thousands of questions that are now dancing through their heads. Instead, it chooses to immediately switch genre from a thriller horror to an action movie in the last 10 minutes, one that sees our protagonist chucking firebombs into the mouth of a giant CG creature in a last-ditch fight for her life. I get what they were trying to do a little bit, I think. By having her fearlessly battle with some aliens for a bit, the film kind of pointed out that these monsters weren't anywhere near as scary as the monster who saved her. At least the aliens were honest with their intentions. They definitely were trying to kill people, whereas Howard's motivations were never that clear. Fair enough, that's kind of an interesting sentiment to end the movie with, but the sudden shift in tone doesn't work. It's also a huge anticlimax when we see the alien design, because the whole film, your imagination is running wild with possibilities of what's outside, and it turns out to just be these four-legged armoured dicks. Personally, I wouldn't have shown the aliens at all, but if I had to, I would have went with something bipedal and more human, maybe more like the creatures in Signs, because as it stands, the design they went with just feels so deeply unimagined and silly. I mean, their mouths even have a foreskin, for fuck's sake. Despite my issues with the ending though, it's a really damn good movie. And I look forward to seeing what the Cloververse, if you will, holds for the future. Whether it's a series of films with different genres and narratives that only match in tone, or an anthology of crazy tragedies that in the final film are all revealed to be happening on the same planet in one super mega crisis. Personally, I just want them to turn out to be reinventions of classic 1950s sci-fi horror. It's possible. Cloverfield was Godzilla. 10 Cloverfield Lane could have been something like Invaders from Mars. So who knows? When we see Cloverfield 3 with a vengeance, we might finally get to see the return of the mole people.